Welcome to the Post Pandemic Freedom Show, brought to you by Bold Builders. I'm Dr. Wayne Buchanan. This is Joshua Shafran,
Nice to see you.
and we are kicking off this series with the big picture of post pandemic freedom. What does it mean? Why do you care? And Josh, why don't you start us out?
Well, I mean, post-pandemic. I mean, we all have different definitions of freedom, right? And why we are looking for freedom, why we want freedom, and what we consider to be freedom. And so, like, I know we were talking last week, Wayne, and I said, well, what does freedom mean to you? And so, what does freedom mean to you, Wayne? How do you look at it?
Yeah, the first thing that always comes up for me, because of where I've been, is time freedom. Like, I just how do I spend my time? What do I get to say no to? Which is a big thing. Like, I have to go do this stuff to make money to live. Okay, but for me, that time freedom, it's interesting because I don't focus on the money piece. That's along the way. That happens to make things happen. But for me, it's the no. I have to put my time into this rather than that.
Yeah, and you said something that is big for me too. First of all, I mean, there's so much to unpack there, but just like from my perspective, my number one value is freedom. Now, what that means to me is a little bit different than what it means to you, but part of that to me is meaning that I have the ability to say no. No to anything that I don't want to do. So that ties right into the timepiece, right? Like being able to control your time and do what you want to do when you want to do it because you want to do it on your terms, because you said so, not because it was required of me. And so the ability to say no to me is the crunch of it. But where it was different for me in terms of the way that it manifested for you was that I somehow, at a very early age, I'm talking about like 3 or 4 years old, this was firmly conditioned in my head and my heart. And just like, I don't know if you, when you were a kid, did you ever play the Three Wishes game?
Yeah, but I was always trying to find the loophole. I'm like, how do we wish for more wishes? How do we get an infinite loop here so I don't have to choose right away?
Sure. All right. Well, let's say that, and I did that too. But the Three Wishes game, it got to the point, and literally, I'm 4 years old, 5 years old, playing this with myself, and I decided that I wanted to have $1,000 a day appear in the pants pocket of the pants that I was wearing, and it had to be in 20s. It couldn't be in $100 bills. It had to be in 20s. And 1,000 that every day would be in whatever pants I was going to wear for the day. Now, think about how conditioned I was, but that was it for me. It was all about freedom, and I wanted $1,000. I didn't want $1 million one time. I wanted $1,000 a day in the pants pocket in 20s. Why 20s? Because I felt as a 5 year old kid that I couldn't spend a $100 bill. Even a $20 bill would be hard. But so I mean, like, that's my idea of freedom, was having that so that I had the money then to say yes or no to whatever I wanted to do. However, and literally that was ingrained into me at 5 years old, and it didn't get any better as I got older. But basically, the idea for me was that I got to make enough money to be able to buy my freedom, and when I make enough money, when I get to some magic number, whatever that is, then I will all of a sudden, for me, the number was millionaire. When I get to have be the title of millionaire, then I will have made it, and I will have the freedom that I want to have, which is my number one value. All of those things. So the funny thing was for me, when I finally did make it to millionaire status for the first time, I was 33 years old. Now, there was no doubt that I'd been pursuing that goal from the time that I was 5 years old or even younger. Because it wasn't just playing the wishing game; it was a bunch of other things at the same time
Mhm.
that was a part of all that. And so, but I finally achieved millionaire status, and it felt great for about a month. And it was everything and more than I dreamed it would ever be, and everything. But guess what? You take you with you. So it didn't fix me. It didn't give me any of the feelings. And then all of a sudden, I went right back into, well, what if I lose it? and what's next, and all of these other things that start attaching yourself to that, because all of the mental stuff, all of the who I was as a person didn't change. And so, if anything, I was less free because now I'm more fearful of losing it. And now I figured, well, how I made the money the first time was like I had to
Mm.
do the same thing again, and I had to protect it. And oh my God, what if I lose that? Or what if I lose the Midas touch, or the knowledge that got me to that point, the what I did, the skills, the capabilities, all of, what if that went away? Then what do I do? And sure enough, notice I said 33 years to become a millionaire for the first time. Well, guess what? It was a roller coaster ride of making and losing millions. Over the next 10 years, I made and lost tens of millions of dollars, not once, not twice, not three times, but four or five times on that roller coaster ride. And again, this concept that I had in my head of being able to buy my freedom, being able to buy the ability to say no. Well, I couldn't say no because I was wrapped up into that. So if anything, I was less free. I was more controlled. I was more constrained by all of those things. And I think that when it comes time to post-pandemic freedom, the pandemic was a it brought all of these things to our awareness, and it really forced us to take a look at it, which is good and bad, right? Because like we well, I mean,
Yeah,
share some
doesn't
of your
feel great at
story if you
all.
would.
But I'd been in higher ed for 20 years and finally went, 15 of those I haven't had a vacation in a row. Maybe I need some time to focus on what I'm doing. And then realizing that, there's a bunch of things that I'm doing here in the institution and pushing these things forward. And guess what? As soon as I stop pushing, nobody else is going to take that up. Nobody else
Right.
seems to care about these. They might want the results, but they sure don't want to support what I'm doing. So why would I put all this energy into an institution that doesn't seem to care about what I'm doing when I could take a step back, do the effectively quiet quitting before that was a thing and say, fine, you get what you're paying me to do. And I'm going to stop doing all the extras and I'm going to put that energy into other things.
Yeah, talk about the quiet quitting, because I love that term, and I don't think I've heard you say it before. And I
Yeah,
got a feel for what you just talked about, because I think a lot of people can relate to that.
yeah, and the thing for me with, obviously the linguistic side, I don't like it as a phrase because it implies that you somehow stop doing a thing, and I guess we've quit doing extra as opposed to quit doing our job. So for me, quiet quitting comes back to I'm doing what I was paid to do. All the extra stuff that you've been getting out of me without paying for it, without even necessarily acknowledging it, without appreciation, some of those things, like, okay, you know what? I can't be on 12 committees. I need to go back to the two or three that I'm supposed to be on as the, what we're meant to be doing. So getting that, reclaiming some of the things that I let people take away from me. And for me, time is one of the pieces that showed up there.
Sure, sure. It's I think that's so prevalent in what happened for a lot of people, and it's what led to the mass resignation and the great regret and all of the things that where everybody just realized that they so they're now working from home, which at first sounds great because I get to be spend more time with my family. I get more control over my time, like I've been wanting. I get to spend the time, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, now I've got to be a teacher. Now I've got to be able to, and I've got to be at work 24/7 because I'm at home and I'm working, and I've got to be at home 24/7, and there's not enough for me to go around. But I think one of the things that I love what you said about your definition of quiet quitting. It's not that you stop doing the job, but here's what I think the pandemic did for a lot of people is that it put it front and center for us. That in terms of knowing that 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 what you're doing doesn't matter to the people that it should matter to. And so you can only go for so long when you're underappreciated, when your contributions are undervalued, where you don't are not looked at as being worthwhile in terms of a person or in terms of what you're bringing to the table. Then it's like, all right, then I'll just do what I've been, like, what is the cog that I'm supposed to be doing? I'm going to put, peg A into slot B, and that's all. You're not paying me to think anymore because you obviously don't value what my thoughts are on this. So why should we continue to do that? And I think that became very, very quickly unbearable because of the pandemic. It kind of magnified everything for everybody. Does that
Yeah.
sound accurate?
Yeah, it's kind of that quiet desperation that finally showed me why my students would only hit minimums. Like, I get it, but I also, being a lifelong learner and loving to consume and learn new things and develop skills, I'm like, but why did you stop? I guess because you have other things that you want to do. I get it, but it was really hard. And so having that moment of going, yeah, hitting my own minimums and having someone probably you say, your minimums are probably more than most other people are expecting, and that's other people's excellent instead of baseline just barely acceptable. So,
Well, and I think we all want to give. I mean, I think it was Jim Rohn I think every awesome quote in the personal development space, in the and executive coaching space, at some point roots traces back to Jim Rohn at some point. But I think it was Jim Rohn that says, when have you ever seen in nature a tree that grows half as tall as it's able to? And we've been beat up enough where we stop growing. Our natural inclination is to grow, to expand, to become more, to be as big as we can be, and to enjoy it and to contribute that to to what we're working on. And it becomes very limiting in that capacity. So, it and when you don't let that out, it takes a toll on you, not just mentally, but physically. Because I know firsthand, being friends with you for damn near 12, 13, 14 years now,
yeah,
I watched what happened at the it was all in full effect for you health wise before the pandemic started, but it really came to a head during the pandemic, and it forced you to
yeah,
say, hey, wait a minute, I got to make some changes.
yeah. I spent a month of remote teaching flat on my back with a laptop on an easel over me. So, yep, it
Yeah.
just hit some threshold. I moved and my back went twang, and I'm like, well, I'm apparently taking some time off, but I still had to do the thing. So I'm there with my laptop hovering over me in bed.
Yep. Yep. So anyway, well, let's kind of put it uh, um, into perspective here, and let's kind of sum up what we've been talking about. Let me arrange this a bit. Okay, so what we've been talking about here is the tale of two paths, uh, moving from a collector to a bold molder so that we can achieve post pandemic freedom. And if we move that into what we've been talking about, we've really kind of talked about all of this, if you will, from one side. So if you say, what's the benefit of why do I want post pandemic freedom? Well, at a global level, first and foremost, let's just back up with where we started, which is, what's your definition of freedom? What does freedom mean to you? What do you want your life to mean, to look like? What is it that you're looking to have? And without needing permission, without needing somebody else to validate your choices, without somebody else needing to stamp your approval, what we're basically looking at is outer versus inner. Okay, so on one side, we've got the outside circumstances, which is people, places, things, the different validation, approval, all the things that what we're supposed to do. All of that lives on one side of the equation, right? And then on the other side is freedom, but freedom on our terms. And what does that mean to us personally? So, Wayne, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we've covered a lot of what's on that left-hand side. We talked about you can either do this or that, and that whole scarcity and finite resources, especially time. And, we're going to just force our way through it. That's how I made it 15 years without a vacation. Other people, because other people say so, and that uncertainty and the fear that did just really come to a head during the pandemic for so many people.
Yep. Yep. Well,
So the alternative you suggest is the other side, right? We're looking at both and living a life of both and.
yeah, I mean, to me, all of the freedom, whether it's financial freedom but it comes with peaceful balance. Being able to say no, be able to do the things that you want to do, be able to live the life that you want to live on your terms, without having the all of this stuff, without all of the feelings of fear based, the uncertainty, living for other people, boss, meaning because other people say so. And then the payoff is that you have this eternal spring, if you will, of confidence and certainty, and you shift into because you said so, because I said so. It's good enough because it's inspired action as opposed to outside circumstances. When we're living from the outside, fear-based uncertainty, force, finite, scarcity, and either or, these are all different ways of saying, well, when the circumstances change, then I will be able to have all of the things that I want to have. When I will then have the freedom. So for me, it was, we've talked about this early on. For me, it was when I become a millionaire. When I make enough money, then I will be able to buy. So for me, the outside circumstance was millionaire, a pile of money that equaled some sort of thing that was going to then give me all of the things on this side of the equation, right? All of this was now going to be, I was going to be able to purchase that for, once I made enough money. What I found out was because of the way that I made the money, it was all based in uncertainty. It was all based in all of those things. So uncertainty and fear-based and finite, definitely it was finite. Like the instant that I had the money, I was fearful of losing it. And I was also thinking, all right, how do I make the next amount of money? And what if this happens? The knowledge. It wasn't just about the knowledge. It wasn't just about the money and the status. It was about, well, what if the climate changes? What if the business climate that I did that was the magic that allowed me to make the money, to do the things that were giving me the feelings that I had of all of this on this side. What if all of that changed? And so now I've got to go, and now all of a sudden I'm fearful. So basically, this is what we call the collector, right? Because a collector, we're collecting up all the things, but on the surface, it doesn't sound like being a collector is a bad thing. In other words, like if I collect enough degrees, enough knowledge, enough wins, enough money, enough, then I'll be able to have my pile and be able to do all those things. Unfortunately, being a collector is being a hoarder. Like you've got to protect it. Now you're worried about somebody else getting it from you. And where in reality, when you're on this side and you're operating from that inner space from inspiration, from because you said so standpoint, and you access that, you're now accessing your bold molder powers, if you will. And the difference is that, like, let's talk about from a standpoint of sharing versus protecting. If I have an idea and I share it with you, and then you have that idea or you buy into that idea, and then you share it back with me, does it mean that because I've shared it with you, do I have anything less? Has it anything been taken away from me?
No.
No. In fact, you sharing it back to me increases my certainty, increases my conviction, my confidence in that idea. And then if you found benefit in it and you go out and share it with somebody else, does it take anything away from me? Even though I may not directly benefit from what you're sharing, does it take anything away from me?
No.
No. And in fact, it gives something to you because the act of sharing, the act of giving, you get at the same time. So it's the expansion that ends up happening, the growth that ends up happening as a result of that. And it is truly infinite. It is truly unlimited in terms of what's possible with this. And so when we can make that shift, it becomes a very powerful thing to then think about it, because I didn't realize till I was in my 40s and I hit that midlife crisis. It was after I made and lost millions multiple times where I said, wait a minute, what's going on? Like, there's got to be something more. I felt like my life didn't matter. I felt like even though I was an entrepreneur and I was on the surface, according to everybody else's looking at me, oh, he's got it made, but I was miserable. I was on antidepressants. I was, twice a year for about a month, I couldn't get off the couch because even with the antidepressants, I literally was like immobilized because I hated who I was, what was going on. And I felt like I wasn't buying into my calling. And the deal that I made with myself while I was making all the money and focused in on that, and not that I wasn't proud of what I was working on and what I was doing, but the deal was that when I made all the money the first time, then I would have enough credibility, I would have enough authority to then go and do what I really was called to do, what was my higher calling, and then I'd be able to do that, so I'd be able to shift. Well, the problem was that that point never came. So, like, the reason why I was riding that roller coaster was because I never gave myself permission to really go for my higher calling, what I was called for doing, what I knew that was my mission, what I was supposed to do. And I don't know about you, Wayne, but I know for me that the longer that I suppressed that, the longer that I repressed that, the worse I got in terms of being angry, in terms of being depressed, in terms of being feeling like a complete and total fraud. You want to talk about imposter syndrome? Here I was, had all the outer trappings of what the world said was success, should be, look like, and I couldn't look at myself in the mirror. And like, if it wasn't for my daughter, who was still in grade school at the time when I was going through all this stuff, I forced myself to put on a good show when she left in the morning, and then I'd be in my funk all day long, and then when she got home at night, I would be the dad that I needed to be for her. And but I'm pretty, she's an adult now, so I haven't ever asked her this, but I'm pretty sure she knew. I'm pretty sure that I wasn't fooling her. I wasn't fooling anybody else. And so anyway, the point is that this was long before the pandemic, by the way. When I was going through this, it was 2009. So, like 11 years before this pandemic. But what this isn't a poor me show. The point is that because of the pandemic, all of us have been forced to look at this stuff. And so, not only did it force us to realize that we weren't valued and that we weren't, that we wanted to follow our higher calling, but the collector tendencies that we had was very pronounced, right? And I mean, you think about what happened during the pandemic is, well, you said it
Yeah,
earlier.
yeah. The folks going to the grocery store and buying up all the toilet paper. Like,
Yeah,
this is
remember
gonna
that?
make their life better somehow.
I had some family that sent me one of those cartoons, and instead of my husband or my son that is a doctor, to marry off the son, it was my son has stock in toilet paper, or has all the toilet paper stock.
Hmm.
Talk about collector and talk about protecting it, and all of that tendency. So it's very constricting versus expansion versus the relief of sharing. And the pandemic definitely did that for us. It put that front and center so that we had to look at it. And I don't believe we're out of it yet. We're out of the pandemic in terms of the lasting effects that it had on us, but mentally now we're still dealing with it, and we have no idea, because on one side of it we feel the pull, because we're very well aware that we've been living a please don't hurt me type life, and we're concerned about dying and all of the scarcity of those things, and hoarding and collecting up all those things. But at the same time, we're very well aware that our freedom has been squashed, and our who we are as beings are designed to be free, to be growth oriented, to contribute, to grow, to give, and to make the impact that we've been put here to make. We all have a vision for whether we can see it anymore or not. We all have a higher calling. We may not believe that to be the case anymore, but we do. And so those are some of the things that I think are really important to give sight to, and give thought to, and reflect on, and to start thinking about or dreaming about again what freedom means to you on your terms, not what Josh says it is, not what Wayne says it is, not what mom, dad, preacher, teacher, coach, what the world at large, what somebody else's idealized picture of what success should look like for you, but what you think success should be for you personally. And then we can start to draw a path to get there. But the first thing is to know that when you are pursuing something, that what you're pursuing is going to be fulfilling to you, that's going to be meaningful to you, that is going to be the kind of contribution, the kind of worthwhile, that you as a person are valued and seen as worthwhile, and what you're giving to the world is worthwhile. Because at your heart, the reason why it gets frustrating, the reason why it gets really annoying, is because you know that you're supposed to be giving these valuable contributions to the world, and that you know that you have something worthwhile to say, but you're not allowing yourself, or you're not being allowed to make those contributions, to make the impact that you know that you're supposed to make. And when you are beat down for so long, and buy into that for so long, then it can become a trick that we start to believe that that we don't have a higher calling, that we don't have a purpose, that we don't have some unique gifts to share with the world, and so we just give up on ourselves. And that's the other side of the pandemic as well, is it's making that piece of it more pronounced. But yet we can't stop feeling the pull to it at the same time too, because it's always in our face. So it's become this sense of dissatisfaction, but it's actually, if we have it, let it serve us, it's a positive dissatisfaction that we can use to slingshot ourselves to, the rubber band. That's we have both sides of the equation that's pulling us the tension, but it can actually be a good thing if we know how to shift. And basically, that's what this whole post-pandemic freedom series is about giving you the vision and the tools and the resources to be able to make that shift on your terms for yourself. And we're going to be drilling down deep into all of this in different nuances, to help you have that understanding, and so this first maiden episode, so to speak, is a longer one because we want to kind of give you the whole State of the Union address, so to speak, of where we are, how we got here, and where it is that we believe, if you want to be a part of it, that we're going. And of course, everybody's journey to post-pandemic freedom is going to be different because we're different, and our definitions of it are different, but we can still support one another along the way in getting to each of our individual visions for what that looks like. And so it's also about making a shift. If we go back to this right here, and let me kind of clean this up a bit so that we can see this. But in addition to shifting from collector to bold molder, it's about shifting from circumstances to vision again. So it's Tale of Two Paths is also about, yes, it's about shifting from collector mentality into bold molder mentality. It's shifting from motivation based to inspiration based, or circumstance driven, internally or externally outer driven, to vision driven, living that life on your terms because you said this is where I want to go on my terms. And so the biggest takeaway that I would hope that you guys walk away from this particular session with is, and if this is resonating with you, if it's not resonating with you, then you aren't even hearing these words because you've stopped watching a long time ago, and that's fine. But if you're still tuned in here, and you're digging what we're talking about, then it's about getting real clear about what vision means to you, what success means to you, what freedom means to you on your terms. And if you could have it be however you want it to be, whatever you want it to look like, what would that be on your terms? That would be my suggestion to you, is to think about it on those terms, and think about like all the times perhaps that you were living from circumstances, meaning that when this happens, then I'll be allowed to do this. Like I was telling you guys earlier, when I make enough money, then I'll be able to, when I hit millionaire status, then I'll be able to really pursue the things that I'm called to pursue, that I know that I really want to do, because then I'll have the authority, the credibility, this and that. Well, that's always outside myself. Instead of giving myself permission, vision, to go for it, to live from vision. So that was a big revelation for me. And then when I realized that collector wasn't necessarily a great thing that was serving me, yes, I want to be able to learn lots of things and continue to grow. But I don't want to learn from the standpoint of being fear-based. I want to learn from the standpoint of expansion. I want to learn because there is more to learn, because I can expand, and in the fact that I'm learning and growing and expanding, then so is life. So is my life. So is the people that I care about, and the people that I want to make a difference for, the impact that I want to make in the world. And so I've redesigned my definition of freedom is not a dollar figure. It's a growth figure, to be able to live life on my terms, but to make the impact, to do what I want to do, to make the contributions. And that's why the Bold Molder project is so important to me, because it's a mountain that I'm okay dying on if I don't ever reach the summit. Now, of course, my intention is to reach the summit, is to help everybody and to help as many people see the vision, and to fine tune this body of work, and to give people the resources and tools and capabilities and new skills to ascend to their definition of what it means to be a bold molder on their terms, and to create something unprecedented that they've never created before. But that is on along the way, if I don't make it to some specific thing where I've made, I've changed millions of people's lives with this, but I've done this along the way, I'm okay at that point because it's a worthwhile endeavor that I feel fulfilled in the act of doing it. Sharing this with you today is a fulfillment of that vision, is living from vision. And will I get better at it? Absolutely. Will I fine tune it? Absolutely. Will I see new possibilities, new horizons when we get there? Absolutely. As will you. So, Wayne, I know I've said a lot and haven't given you a chance to get a word in edgewise, so I'm going to let you do that now.
No, I think it's good stuff. I think that those who have made it this far are seeing some of what we're seeing, and I think that you got that phrase you love so much: as you pray, move your feet. And I think today's foot moving action is to get out there and really dig in to what is it that is your vision, is your version of freedom. And for each of us to get really clear on that, and that is one of those first steps that it takes to get from the collector over into the bold molder side of things.
Great. And if you want to go deeper, I would suggest that you download Wayne wrote from his perspective the post pandemic abundance playbook, which is a 28-page kind of a workbook. It starts with his story from his point of view, and then he breaks down how he's putting this into action. And there's some fill in the blank sheets, and it's a free download on Gumroad. If you go over to postpandemicabundance.com, it'll redirect you straight to the Gumroad download, and you can get that report for yourself. And I highly recommend it if you want to take this to the next level. Otherwise, wait for the next installment or next episode where we start taking a deeper dive into some of the pillars of making your journey to post-pandemic freedom on your terms.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys next time.